Are you nuts? Good. Keep going. How a stranger at my door at 9 p.m. reminded me that uninformed enthusiasm is the most valuable asset you have, and what it costs the moment you trade it for comfort. Are you nuts? That was a thought I had. That was the very first thing that ripped through my head as I stared into this kid's eyes on my front porch at 9 p.m. on a Monday night. I had to bite my tongue to keep it from coming out. Are you nuts? What on earth do you think this would make any sense? Who in the year of our Lord of 2026 knocks on a stranger's door at this hour of a school night and expects to walk away with a sale? I'm staring into this little kid's eyes, and he's staring back into mine. Somewhere behind me, my wife is doing what my wife does, which is operating on the working assumption that everyone on the other side of this closed door is out to rob, steal, kill, or maim her in some specific premeditated combination. She's already considered and rehearsed in her head, who is it? Who is it? I could hear her behind me, the voice climbing and climbing, expecting some 12-foot gorilla on the porch. Now, I want to be fair here. Overhyped is a too common term to use, and it doesn't quite capture it. Because if you pull back the camera, her concern is actually logically based. It was 9 p.m. on a Monday. It was pitch black. The kind of dark where street lights at the end of the block hum but don't really do too much. And somebody's knocking, not pressing the stupid ring. By the way, why don't people use my ring? I spent hundreds of dollars on this stupid thing, and nobody presses the ring button. I researched it, mounted it, paired it, set it up on the chime, put it into the 3 different rooms, and nobody cares. This person entirely forgets that there's even a silver thing that's staring with a blue light right there. This entire neighborhood, nobody sees it. Nobody ever presses this damn button. They just keep knocking like it's still 1974. Anyways, I could tell by the weakness in this little knock, that the cadence was probably a neighbor with some stupid question. Hey, can you move your car? Would you get the package on the porch? We got a package for you. Didn't know. Oh, have you seen our dog? These things happen from time to time. Now, routine domestic stuff is always part of my world. But to my surprise, when I open the door and step onto the porch, standing there alone by himself is a little AT&T salesperson, barely 100 pounds. A little shoulder bag, the lanyard, the whole thing. And I'm like, oh my God. Really? Eager is the only way to describe someone like that. Now, in my first sales job, I was eager too. I can remember grinding it out just like him, trying to make that sale. Now, at 9 p.m., as my wife and I were just wrapping up dinner, and by the way, we're not usually eating that late, for a very specific reason. Now, I had taken my longer bike ride out that day because I had a new valve in my tire that I had installed, because for some unknown reason, my tire will not stay pumped up. It won't hold air for more than 40 minutes. I've sort of given up on everything, trying not to take the back wheel off and then retool it with a new tire, and it's just a mess. I figured I'll just try one more thing, put a new valve in, clipped off, and rode for 20 minutes. That was 40 minutes, and then an hour later, I'm like, I gotta get back. Anyways, what was supposed to be a quick test spin turned into a hour and 15-minute little ride. Anyways, the sheer delight of having nothing to do on a warm evening, that was my issue. The air was thick and soft, and the smell of people's grills as I drove by, it was nice. Carrying me down memory lane. Anyways, that hour was why dinner was late. That hour was why I was still, awake and standing at the door when the knock came. Funny how small things stack up into big ones. Now here's where we are. Me on the porch, my wife behind me, the voice still climbing, salad half eaten on the table, and this poor kid, launching into his pitch. And I want to tell you, what I felt in that moment, because this is where the whole thing turns. I feel for guys like this. As I said before, I've been there. I had to make those sales. Back in the early 90s, I did the same damn thing, although it wasn't at 9 o'clock at night. Well, maybe, I don't remember, but it was the same thing. Job was selling those stupid Bose radios, $1,000 a piece. And I couldn't believe people would pull credit cards out and checks. They'd listen to this thing and then they'd actually buy. $1,000 in the 90s was like $5,000. And this is for a radio. Anyways, standing on the porch was this poor kid. And I thought about, like, in those days when I had to make these sales and I had to do the same thing. But yet somehow I ended up making the trip to the Bahamas for this company, which is great. I was one of the top salespeople. But I looked in his eyes and I go, okay, what do we do here? Now, a normal thing that I would normally do would be to sell him into working for my company. Because I'm like, if you're out here at 9 o'clock pitching cell phones, come work for my company, because I'll tell you what, I'll make you more money than this. But you have to realize that I actually have to think about the conversation I'd need to have at that point in time. And with my wife behind me, still thinking that there's some gorilla on the porch, I had to say, okay, look, you have to kind of give up at some point. So at some level of sort of facing the music, I said, listen, I can't talk to you right now. And, I felt sorry for him, but, this whole process of having someone behind me like a confused little kitten wondering what the hell I'm doing was not worth the conversation that I would have to have afterwards. Especially since this 12-foot gorilla she had imagined in her mind might at any moment lash out and take her away to some mountain far away. So I decided to just dismiss the whole thing and said, hello, little solicitor, it's time for you to go. And I sent him on my way. But here's the point of this whole story. I closed the door and I stood there for a second with my hand still on the deadbolt. And I started thinking about the times where I'm at right now and the things I do each day and what I actually do. There's nothing in my current life that compares to the absolute balls of walking up to a stranger's house at 9 p.m. and trying to close a sale. Nothing. No meetings I take, not the calls I make, no the deals I structure, nothing in my day, nothing even close into my calendar optimized that even sniffs at the raw nerve required to do what this young gentleman was trying to do. That kid was amazing to me. That was absolute audacity of having the capability to get a hard no in your face without flinching. There's just no possible way that in anybody's thought process that this is a thing that you would be able to do and a thing that you would be able to close. And that's what it really takes to be an entrepreneur. I mean it. If my wife hadn't been throwing a fit behind me, thinking that this monkey was going to take her to another deserted island, I would have tried to hire that kid. I'm serious. Again, just like I said, I would have brought him inside, sat him at the kitchen table, and asked him a few questions and got him pointed in the right direction. And that's the thing. In reality, entrepreneurship is just an uninformed enthusiasm. And let me say that again because it's important and it matters. Uninformed enthusiasm. That is the key to life. And trying to become an entrepreneur and growing a business is basically the same thing. It really made me think about the last outcome I had, which was selling my business, and how I have let something that has been bugging me lately quietly start to impact my life. It's called the cost of comfort. The cost of comfort is what happens when we become too selective in our environment and we stop making decisions based off of risk and reward. Instead, we make decisions based off of comfort and passivity. We choose the route that costs us the least amount of friction. We choose let's just say the conversation that requires the least amount of challenge. We choose the dinner spot we know and we trust. We schedule the run that we do every day, the 2 miles that I've been doing for so many years. We do the type of work we already understand. And the truth that came up for me, standing there with my hand on that damn deadbolt as I closed them out, I'm actually missing interaction. I'm missing excitement of the unknown. That's the thing that got me here. That's the thing that got me here in the first place. It's why I'm talking to you. If it weren't for the thrill of the chase and the willingness to take on the necessary risks, I wouldn't be sitting here right now in an office talking to you today after building a 7-figure business, being able to bank that sale of that business into investments and assets that are now producing income while I sleep. That's not a victory lap. That's a warning to myself. I was thinking, what the hell am I doing? Because I realized looking at that kid and seeing myself, my younger self looking right back at me. Is that what I have to do? Is that the thing that I need to take charge of? This model of forcibly creating discomfort in my world? Is that how we grow? And I think that's actually what lights you up and changes your thought processes. And I started to put the thing together. I'm like, it's all systematic willingness to find new things that you actually end up enjoying. Holy crap. It was just like trying a new ice cream flavor that you never thought you'd feel you'd like before. You know what you like. You might have a rotation, but you go, well, never had that. Maybe I'll just try a taste. And all of a sudden you're hooked. You found a new flavor, a new thing to think about, a new thing to want. I can even remember when I didn't like grilled vegetables. My poor wife forced them into my diet. I would never put a vegetable on the grill. It was not allowed. And now, I can't get enough of them. In fact, the char on the outside of broccoli and sweetness that comes out of asparagus off of a grill, it hits the right spot. I would have never even known this. I would have died never even knowing that I could have had this wonderful delight if I'd stayed loyal to just burgers and chicken on the grill. Now, all of these things, these little possibilities, getting outside of your comfort zone, spending time, forcibly putting yourself into conversations, situations where the unknown is sitting there, waiting to be explored. They are worth the adventure, let me tell you, my friend. And I think that's what my little solicitor was actually after, even if he couldn't have put it in those words. He wasn't there for the hard no. He was there for the unknown. So the question I'm leaving you with tonight, what things can you do today to get outside of your comfort zone? And just as important, how do you put it in your calendar to make sure it happens? The secret. Because if you leave it to chance, comfort is an incredibly efficient machine, and it will fill every available slot if you let it. Sometimes you have to ignore the voice behind you who's asking you, stay there, stay there. That's not what you want. Motherfucker. Sometimes you just have to open the door. Lessons learned here. When you stare into the eyes of a stranger, the first thoughts you might have is that you're nuts. Pay attention, because what you might actually be looking at is a mirror. The kind that was on my porch. Just a kid on the porch. He was a version of me. Built every dollar I had today. That version didn't know yet enough. That version didn't know the version of no. That version only knew adventure. Now, that person, that was me, because those doors that walked in front of me, those doors that were closed, those doors that were only open if I used my uninformed enthusiasm. It's not a flaw to outgrow. It's an engine, and it's the first thing you start to lose when comfort settles in. Comfort doesn't announce itself. It comes quiet, dressed up as just an earned rest, and slowly it reorganizes your decisions around friction avoidance. Instead of risk and reward, cost shows up in the flatness of days that should feel full. The fix is not to manufacture stress. The fix is to schedule the unfamiliar with the same seriousness that you schedule everything else. Because if you don't put discomfort on your calendar, the calendar will fill itself with comfort, and comfort doesn't grow anything. That kid wasn't selling me cell phones. He was selling me back to myself.